My name is Jen Sygit, and I live in Lansing, Michigan, and I moved here in 1999 to attend Michigan State University. And somewhere along the lines, I went from being an English major to a songwriter, and I now do it for a living, and have been for about 12 years. So my first real job here in Lansing was working at Elderly Instruments. I worked there for about 3 years, and it was a fantastic place to cut my teeth here in Lansing. They have a variety of instruments, which helped me go from just being a guitar player to playing instruments like banjo and dobro and ukulele. Granted, jack of all trades, master of none, but nonetheless, I have a lot of experience now that I didn't have before. Learned a lot about instruments that I didn't know about before. More genres of music that I wasn't familiar with. So just in general, working at Elderly Instruments was a great place for me to woodshed and just sort of become who I am by taking a bunch of info in and then, digesting it all and deciding what do I want to put back out there out of the things I've learned. When I was a child, my parents told me that I could wander into a room and pick up whatever instrument was there and just start playing it. And so when I turned 16, without me asking for one, my parents gifted me a guitar for my 16th birthday. However, they didn't give me lessons, and so I was it was unlike piano or some of the other instruments I'd played. Guitar requires a little bit of dexterity and some strength in your fingers that I didn't have, so it took me a minute to connect with the guitar. But yes, before I moved to Lansing, I did play some guitar. Working at Elderly Instruments exposed me to a whole bunch of other instruments, another world of instruments that I wasn't aware of growing up where I did, which I grew up in Port Huron, Michigan area. Technically Marysville, but no one knows Marysville, so I say Port Huron because it's easier for people to connect with. But I started playing pretty young, so I've been playing guitar for a long time, and the other instruments happened after I moved here to Lansing and was exposed to a larger variety of things, again, generally through Elderly Instruments. I think if you're a musician and you move to Lansing, you discover Elderly Instruments fairly quickly. It's a nationally renowned company for starters, so if you've been in the business outside of Lansing for a while, generally you'll hear about Elderly. As a newbie to the business, as a 16-year-old songwriter, before I'd moved here, I hadn't heard of Elderly. But once you move here, in this area, it's an institution. It's very well known. It'd be harder to not hear about it. This is kind of a hard question. Yeah, so my first songwriting excursion when I was a kid, I started writing on a broken down old organ in my parents' basement. That's where my first songs came from. So I was a child of the 80s. I was born in 79. I grew up in the 80s as a youngster, so the 80s was my big inspiration for my first songs, which is quite the far cry from the Americana folk roots music I do now. My first tune was called Hot Love. I had no idea what I was talking about, being a child, and I wrote it with my good friend Tracy Brinker, and it was horrible. It was a horrible 80s pop song. I think I was sort of using the organ like a synth, a bad version of synth, and that's what it was. It was bad. It was real bad. I think Madonna was definitely an influence on this song because it was very much like, why is this 5, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, however old I was, or, singing this song about hot love running through my veins. Yeah, I don't even know what that means as a kid. I just know Madonna sings stuff like that. It's cool. Oh, well, when I first got to Elderly Instruments, as a new Lansingite and a new musician, I was intimidated a little bit because almost everybody that works there, for starters, is a professional musician of some sort. They might do it on the side, like Elderly is their main employment, but they play music on the side. So there's a little bit of intimidation there because you're moving into a world of people who've been doing it for a long time and are quite knowledgeable. That's one of the benefits of going to Elderly, is that the staff that works there actually knows what they're talking about. So that was definitely something, intimidation. And then after a while, you learn from them. That's the best thing about working at Elderly and being a young musician working there is, I want to say my launching thing is normally all the different instruments I learned there, because that's really the biggest thing. Was just, I went from being a guitar player to playing banjo and a bunch of other instruments, which does influence the sound of the music. So it's such a hard question to answer if someone asks you what makes you connect to a song, because it's such a personal experience for each individual listener. So, I might connect more with a song in a certain moment of my life that I previously hadn't connected to, if that makes any sense. Generally, I'm really looking for some strong lyrics and strong melody in a song, but there are even songs I like that don't have a strong melody, so I really hate to put myself in a box as far as what I do and don't like, because I think that not only changes over time, but as you're experiencing life, certain songs are the soundtrack to certain emotions of your life. And I think emotions are where music come from, man. I mean, it's like music is being able to communicate. You don't even need words if you're, a musician that just plays instrumental. I personally like words to my songs, and I think that's another talent that people have that I enjoy seeing them try to put to music, because everyone can write prose or they can write a poem, but putting that prose or poem to music is a whole new ballgame. And then again, making it connect with your audience and having it be accessible to them is it's a challenge, and if someone achieves it, then it's a beautiful thing. But I think my favorite songs that I'm most proud of, one has got a very strong Lansing tie. I call it Conductor Man, and if you know the real person's name, then I apologize. This is total creative license here. But he's the fellow that's been walking around Lansing with the boombox.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe I might interview Melik, who is luckily off camera, unlike myself. I think maybe he might know the fellow, but I've never met him, but he's sort of this legendary institution here in Lansing, and he serenades the citizens of Lansing with his boombox. And so I wrote a song about him, not actually knowing him again, and it's called Conductor Man. And I'm proud of the lyrics, and I'm proud of the story that I've weaved about the person. I'm proud of the guitar part on that. It's a challenging part even for me still, and I've played it many, many times. And I'm also in love with the fact that, speaking of connection between the listener and the writer, people now send me photos and videos when they see him, and it's become this almost like living art where people can connect with me by saying, I've seen this person that you're singing about in the song, and here's this photo, or here's this story about him. And I love collecting those stories and having that sort of conversation with the listener. It's pretty fun.
Go ahead.
So I'm really fortunate and lucky that I've been nominated for not one but 2 independent music awards this year. It's basically a thing you enter in New York, but it's an international competition. And I've somehow made it into the final 5 for 2 different categories, one being Best Americana Song for the title track to my latest record, It's About Time, which was mixed and mastered right here in Glenn Brown's studio, by the way. And the other was for Best Director for my friend Michael McCallum, who's from Rebel Pictures, local film company here in Lansing. And he won, I'm sorry. It feels like a win to me, that's why I'm saying this. But he is top 5 for Best Director for my music video, Love is Wild. So it's a pretty big boon to me. There's some pretty amazing judges, people like Tom Waits, that's a really big one for me, Leanne Womack, and the lead singer of Mumford & Sons, and Todd Rundgren, and all these different industry people. So it's really exciting for me to be able to take my little Lansing record and have it be getting some notoriety and attention on a not just national but really international level. And so I'll be going to New York in June to the awards ceremony. And hopefully we'll see what happens from there. But it's an exciting nod and a small victory, even being a finalist. So I'm really, really excited about that. Tom Waits is one of my favorite songwriters of all time. He takes things to places most people can't and gets away with it. And I don't even know what to say about him. That's a bad question for me, I think, because it's like my brain's going to go in 5 million directions. Well, you can't even really talk, like, his albums are all so different. You can't even talk about, like, what he does, because it's so different every time. But, anyway. Next question. Tom Waits is my bandmate's husband, Joe Serapere. I'm in a band called Stella on the side. It's an all-girl trio, and this Joe Serapere says Tom Waits is her husband, and sorry to her actual husband. There you go. That's a funny clip for you.
That's an answer.
Well, I have a song called Love is Wild, and when I should preface this by saying when I made this most recent record, I did a crowdsourcing campaign and raised money to make it, because records cost a lot of money to make. And when I made the Kickstarter video, the song I played for the Kickstarter video was a tune called Love is Wild. On the record, it's a big, almost like New Orleans dance party tune. It's got a full horn line, and it's a really upbeat, peppy tune. The gist of the song is love is for everyone, which is something I really, truly believe in. And so basically what happened is when I shot the Kickstarter video, I played the song, and then we took the footage of me playing the song, interspersed it with different couples showing affection of all different varieties, and that's generally the gist of the video. It's mostly all Lansing people. It was all shot here in town. A lot of it was shot at Blue Owl in Rio Town, and features a bunch of Lansing folks. I'm really, really proud of it and the work that Michael McCallum and Rebel Pictures did for the video, and I hope you'll check it out. I think a lesson I'd like to pass on to future songwriters that might be wanting to pursue it as a living is that it's a lot easier to do than people think. I think as a youngster, we sort of only see the really mainstream music, and we think that we have to achieve something like Britney Spears level. And the reality is there's a whole bunch of us out there making a living doing our art. And granted, we're not as rich as Britney Spears, and we don't have all of the things that she might have. But I've been making a living at it for 12 years. And if I can do it, you can do it too. It takes a lot of work and a lot of gumption. And you have to really love it. But that's the whole thing, right? If you're doing something you love, then it doesn't feel like work. And if you're a budding songwriter, I say go for it. Don't give up. And just know that you don't have to achieve, like Grammy level fame to be able to make a living doing it. My handle on Twitter is a reference to the Sex Pistols. It's a Sid Vicious reference, and I've been to the room where he killed Nancy. Well, I've been outside of it at the Chelsea Hotel, but that's not what it's based on. That was after the nickname happened. My friend in Ohio, another songwriter, Eric Nassau, started calling me Sid Vicious, and it just stuck, and it makes a great handle because you can get it. It's like I might have been able to get my name because, frankly, Sygit's a weird enough name that I don't generally have to try too hard to get, like, my .coms and stuff. But
oh, look, Gmail's available.
But Sid Vicious is definitely a play on Sid Vicious. My roots, by the way, in high school, I was very into punk music. So I know I had a boyfriend with a mohawk. And so that's definitely part of the Sid Vicious is sort of my history and a little nod to what I listened to growing up.
How exactly do you love cheese? Literally and figuratively.
Oh, well, I love cheese. I love to eat cheese. That would be the literal sense of the word cheese. And I love figurative cheese, as in, like, the cheesy things. I love puns. I love puns a lot. And so, yeah, that's what that means.
Do you do a lot of recording in the bathroom?
Only when I'm at Glenn Brown's studio do I do recording in the bathroom. You'll have to go take a photo of the amp in the bathroom. But mostly, I sing a lot in the bathroom. I sing a lot in the shower, because the acoustics are amazing. Why wouldn't I? But most of my writing, I honestly feel like I do a lot of writing, or at least, like, internalized writing in the car. I spend a lot of time in the car, and it's sort of like a meditative state for me.
As a passenger or as a driver? Like, how?
More often as a driver. I mean, now you have recording functions.
So you just hit record and you're like, oh my gosh.
There actually was a news article written about me, Jen Sygit, Danger to Roads, because I used to, before the age of digital era, I was grabbing a scrap of paper and jotting something down on the steering wheel while I was cruising. But I don't do that anymore. No longer a danger to the roads. I honestly, mostly the reason I said internalized is I don't usually even pick up the recording device. It's generally something like I'll just like internalize an idea, work on it, chew on it, and then when I stop, if it's still hanging out, it's good, I'll record it down and work on it, flesh it out later when I'm not driving.
Safely. Now I'm going to give you some topics, but we're going to go from there. Guilty pleasure, movie.
Oh, guilty pleasure?
Yeah.
So, like, one I should be ashamed to like? Is that what that means?
Kind of. I'll say our like TV show. My guilty pleasure TV show was Laguna Beach.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I was totally into it, and I'm laying in bed watching the marathons on a Saturday. I would lose a day, and I'm like, I am not a 19-year-old girl or a 12-year-old girl. Why am I watching this?
Funny.
But I bought in. So like.
Yeah, I'm fairly nerdy. I don't get into a lot of like the Real Housewives or like the sort of like what would be considered girly shows. I'm sort of the opposite. I'm like the nerd that watches like National Geographic. Like I'll watch like
yeah, but what's the show that you're like
cheesy show? I'm trying.
What's the show that you would not tell somebody?
Right. Okay.
You're like
about this. I'm really thinking like I watch House Hunters. Like I'm like, what do I watch?
What about a guilty?
Here's something for you. It's not a movie. Guilty. Oh, you want movie though? You see about the
movie.
Because I'm like I read
TV
a lot
show.
of cheesy, like crappy romance novels. How about that?
Okay.
How's
Okay,
that?
telling on
That's
yourself.
like an embarrassing. Is that embarrassing enough? It's kind of embarrassing.
Telling on yourself. Okay.
Guilty pleasure song. Wow. Man, well, that's a tough one. These are tough questions, actually. I'm sure there's something cheesy I like. Let me think about this for a minute. I actually own a Hanson CD, and I didn't think it was horrible. So let's go with that. I haven't listened to it in probably a decade, but yeah, Hanson. This isn't like a lame thing, but I'm big into poker. I actually played a poker tournament in Vegas, and I really love playing poker. I play mostly online, but I used to play house tournaments, and I'm really into that. That's kind of a weird fact about me. Maybe people aren't aware of. This summer there was a poker tournament or not a tournament, but just a poker game at a music festival, and all the guys were like, I was definitely the only girl playing poker at this table. But yeah. So you can find me in all of the typical places you can find any performing songwriter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I am on Instagram. I have a website, which is jensygit.com. What else do I have? What else is there? What other platforms? I said Instagram. Let's see. Instagram,
Twitter, YouTube. Do you have your own YouTube channel?
No, not that
Why
I know
not?
of.
You're a musical person.
I mean, you might find one, but I didn't make it.
Oh, that should
Because
be
there's
yours.
a bunch of videos of me on there. But maybe I'm bad at self-promotion. I don't know.
How long have you been? Talk about the radio show,
sure.
your history of that, and
I'm starting to lose count of how many years I've been doing the radio show. It's called Eclectic. It's on 89.7, which is LCC radio, in downtown Lansing. And I took over. Originally, I was asked to take over a show for a host named Lynn Perino, and she had a really well-established show called Strings and Things, which was actually being picked up by Sirius XM at the time. And she decided to retire from being a radio host and to go teach at Specs Howard in Detroit. And so when she left LCC, they asked me to take over her show. And instead of taking over the show, she decided she wanted to keep the rights to the title of the show. No problem. They said, create your own show, do your own thing. So I called it Eclecticana. It means eclectic Americana. The eclectic part is very important to me because it means I can play whatever the heck I want. And then, yeah, I've been doing it for, I think, 7 years. I'm starting to lose count when I started doing the show, but I really enjoy it. And it's been I'm an audiophile, so just getting all the submissions alone is like a joy for me. And also, I love to help Michigan artists, in particular local artists, get some airtime. I do play some national people, but I'd say it's like 60-40, 60% Michigan, 40% national. So you're getting played, you could be played next to Tom Waits, who knows, and that's kind of fun, I think, for a local artist to have that exposure.
when does that air?
My radio show airs on Fridays from 1 to 3, and it re-airs on Saturdays from 3 to 5. I had to think about it.
Awesome.
Oh, man. I apologize if you like my music, because it means you're a sad bastard. Just kidding. No, I'm really... I can't keep this answer because Melik is losing it. No, I feel like I tend to write, joking aside, even though Melik might not keep that last clip of us laughing about my sad bastard comment. And, I think I do tend to write from more of a place of sadness, and this is not an uncommon thing for songwriters. They tend to write when they're not happy versus when they're happy. For me, it's a challenge to write happy sounding songs. I'm really good at writing sad songs that sound happy. I think that's where I have a good strength, and sort of angsty, sad songs. So, but honestly, I do think I have a wide variety of content as far as both stylistically and subject matter wise. I think I'll tell you my favorite compliments maybe. How about that? Would that be a good thing? My favorite compliments I've received from a fan. One of them was, I wrote a song called Sugar High, which has been a fan favorite. It's less of my favorite, more of a fan favorite. But I wrote the song, and it's about drug use, and particularly about bad things that happen around drug use. And I had a boy, I shouldn't say boy, he's a man, he was probably 18 or 19 years old, had attended a show I played with his father, and he was a recovering drug user, and it had just done a bunch of damage to his family. And he came up after the show in tears, and he got the song. It was like he felt like it was written about him, and he and his dad had a connection moment over the song, and it made him weep. And he came up after and thanked me profusely, and like that's the money. That's like what I'm going for, is for someone to really hear what I'm saying. And just because it wasn't a positive song doesn't mean someone couldn't have a connection with it. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
All right, anything I forgot?
I think we've got a lot there. I hope I didn't screw any of it up, but I think you've got some good stuff
All right,
to choose from.
cool.
Let me get all the notes here.
Everybody.
I'm not
take a piece of
joking though.
paper.
The Lansing State Journal, I think, Matt Miller, you probably know Matt Miller. I don't
Know the
know, it
name.
might be Detroit News now, I don't know, but he did a story on me, and I'm not joking, that was the headline. It was like Jen Sygit, Danger to Roads.
Like, how did somebody figure out you were? Did they?
Well,
if
I was
people were
talking to him in the interview,
Oh,
and I
didn't-
did mention that I jotted it down, but he made the whole
Then
time,
that-
like the topic, the whole
Oh my
like,
God.
it's like, come on, Matt.
That's so crazy.